This week we jump into the fourth book of the Torah. Bamidbar means numbers in English, but it actually means in the wilderness. Well, okay, there's a difference. The English names are not typically the exact translation of the words. But the English name makes the book sound pretty straightforward. Numbers. What could possibly be confusing about numbers? And when you start to read it, you're actually faced with numbers. Lots of numbers of lots of people, totaling the entirety of the Israelite population, or at least everyone who was able-bodied and would be able to fight and defend the nation. Now, this census was how they were not only able to determine their defensive capabilities, but how they were to apportion land and campsites as they moved from place to place. Now, the commandment to take the census was given on the first day of the second month of the second year after the Israelites left Egypt, and it was taken according to the tribal houses of Israel. The Levites, the priestly tribe, were exempt from the count because, as we are told in the Torah, the Levites did not inherit a portion of the land. Their tribal responsibility was the disassembly, reassembly, and maintenance of the traveling Mishkan. Of the 11 remaining tribes, only men 20 years old or older were counted. Now, the majority of this Torah portion goes into exacting detail with the census of the tribes and the clans, and it is interesting to read, as we did tonight, how when men of fighting age were counted in the other tribes, in the tribe of Levi, there was a separate count. Men from the ages of 30 to 50 were also separated out in order to perform tasks for the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. Now, Bamidbar is 4 chapters long. And today we started our Torah reading with chapter 4, verse 1. And our reading that we did tonight describes the separation of the Kohathites within the tribe of Levi by saying, quote, take a separate census of the Kohathites among the Levites by the clans of their ancestral house, from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service to perform tasks for the tent of meeting. This is the responsibility of the Kohathites in the tent of meeting, the most sacred objects. So this clan within the tribe was given an awesome responsibility for moving each separate piece of the portable Mishkan. But first, before that could be done, Aaron and his sons, the Kohanim, the high priests, had to cover each particular piece. The ark, the table of display, all the bowls, the ladles, the jars, the libation jugs, the lampstand and the lamps, the tongs that they used to put stuff on and off the ark, the fire pans and oil vessels, and finally the copper altar. All would be covered with various colored cloths and then covered with tachash skin. That's that word I messed up during the Torah reading. And in the Torah that's translated, in Safari it's translated as dolphin skin, and it was not a dolphin, it was not flipper, it was actually some kind of unidentified kosher land animal. Some people say it was like a badger. Anyway, in addition, the copper altar, which was used to burn the people's offerings, animal fat and entrails, and sometimes the entire animal, had to be completely cleaned out and all the ashes removed. And then once that was done, all the utensils were placed inside and a cloth was spread over it before it could be moved. Now, the large pieces all had carrying poles that would be inserted in the sides to aid in their transport to the next camping place. Anybody see Raiders of the Lost Ark? The poles that they put inside on the side, and then 4 people each would carry each of these large pieces to the next site. But only when everything was clean and covered were the Kohathites, the special class of Levite, permitted to enter and lift the objects to be moved. So I guess I can understand that everything needed to be covered before the Kohathites could move the sacred objects. And it's probably no different than packing up the valuables in your house when you're moving. So when the movers come to move us, we certainly expect that they're going to wrap all our stuff in bubble wrap and cover our furniture and protect it before they load it into wherever they're going to move it. So I assume this is kind of the way they were thinking. What puzzled me was, why were the sacred objects kept in such a way that only the Kohanim were able to see them? If the Kohathites were responsible for their care during travel, why would the priests believe that they would damage those objects prior to moving them? The answer, as usual, is in the Torah. And this is what it says. When Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sacred objects and all the furnishings of the sacred objects at the breaking of the camp, only then shall the Kohathites come and lift them, so that they do not come in contact with the sacred objects and die. Die? I'm going to see a sacred object, I'm going to die? So I'm left to wonder, why would God make something holy only for it to be hidden away, out of sight, so that only a few people could see it? I understand the concept of holiness, but I get stuck on the holiness of physical objects. Not that a pen is that holy. It just depends what you're writing. But physical objects can be replaced. And I certainly don't hold objects the same degree of holiness as people, but, that's me. Perhaps at the time, when the situation was new, when the whole concept of the Mishkan, the Holy of Holies, and the dwelling place of God was really just becoming known, it might have been feared that if the holy objects were seen, they might be taken. Sacrifices to God had been made in public places since the time of Abraham. And while certain rites were done privately, worship of God, in whatever way it occurred, did not necessarily take place behind a curtain in a hidden place. But as the population grew, more cliques, more factions, and opposition grew, it might have made sense that certain rites and rituals were kept out of view. After all, there are multiple stories in the Torah of people who were trying to take advantage, people who spoke out against Moses, tried to take over the community, or made an offering that was outside the bounds that had been laid out in God's instructions. We've got Aaron's sons, Nadav and Abihu, that offered alien fire, and whoosh, the big fire came out and ate them up. And then we have Korach and his merry tribe of people who were against Moses and were bad-mouthing Moses and saying, well, why do you get to be above us? And then a big hole came and opened up and swallowed them and sucked them down into the earth. Those stories are in the Torah. Maybe because of the transgressions of a few, God didn't think that the people as a whole would respect the leadership that had been designated. And that the intricacies of working with God needed to be hidden and relegated to a select few. So, an analogy is our sanctuary here in Auditorium B. This is a publicly used room, which not only houses us, but it houses the Spirit Song Church. They have a couple offices back there. There are also band concerts, meetings, other events. Multiple activities occur in this room every month. During each Shabbat and holiday we celebrate here, we convert this room into our own tabernacle of sorts, our own temple. We bring out our Aron HaKodesh, our Ark, the Torahs. We have the ritual objects for services. And when the Ark is not in use, it lives in the corner of the room over there, and it's covered, out of sight for anyone else who enters the room during the week. It is holy, and while not hidden from view during our worship, it's hidden from view from those who are not participating, with us during those sacred times. Now the Spirit Song Church's cross is hidden behind this curtain back here. They keep the curtain closed because it's their holy object that is revealed during their worship services. They move the curtain aside and it lights up and it's beautiful. Everything else we use is hidden in our office so that those who share this space can't access them when we are not here to protect them. So a personal analogy might be that there are certain things about our own lives that we like to keep to ourselves. While Seth is not here, I will say I do not keep things from him. There are certainly things that we don't share with our kids, our parents, or our friends. There are aspects of my financial and personal life, and even my spiritual life that I keep closely guarded. There are things I just choose not to share. And I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced and done the same thing. Are these things holy? I remember my dad telling me that there were just things he kept close to the vest. Now, being a poker player myself, I understand the origin of that term, as my fellow poker players are smiling, but it made perfect sense. He owned his own medical practice and took very seriously the privacy of his patients. So I think we can describe holiness to anything we want, whether that's objects or ideas, information, or any aspects of ourselves and our surroundings that require special care and attention. Like our Torahs, our Ark, our books, our synagogue documents. We also have ritual objects in there. We have our Havdalah set, we have our shofarot, and now we have a huge library of beautiful, sometimes sacred books. By the way, we got a new bookshelf in the office. There's going to be a library soon. But that holiness can live on a spectrum, where we consider some things holier than others, and where we insist on keeping those things hidden from the view of everyone but a select few that we choose. My view is that God understood that and created a way for people to get used to the fact that certain things just needed to be kept away from public consumption so that they would be able to do what they needed to do. The Kohanim could do what they needed to do. If things are out in the open, free to be seen and touched by everyone, does that somehow reduce their holiness in the eyes of someone who might see them as holy? Are things that are hidden inherently holier than things that are out in plain view? I think it's good to keep certain things to ourselves. And it's also good to share parts of ourselves with our community. That's what part of being a part of a community is. There's a balance that we have to have in order to interact in a healthy, holy way. So I implore you, please keep yourselves holy. But also, please remember to share the best parts of yourselves with the community, even some of the holy parts. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to start with the conclusion of our